So tonight we're all around the new normal. Now, we did talk about this very early on when we started the forum and trying to find out what people thought about what would the new normal look like. Would we go back to the old normal? And at the time, there was a view that very few clubs thought they would go back to what was the normal at the time. I think there was one said they would go back to face-to-face meetings only out of the people that were on it. I wanted to explore that just a little bit further on what's the possibility going forward. And what I'm going to do is I've got a video clip I'm going to share. It's about a 5-minute clip. And if I can manage this and share sound. So there is no going back to normal, and it's a speaker that I actually quite enjoy. He talks on various topics. He's the one guy that set up the TED Talks amongst a lot of other things. But Simon Sinek is really worth listening to. And if nothing else, just to hear some thoughts. Are they all right? Well, you judge. So here we go. Here's just it's a 5-minute 40 clip.
So one of the things that an infinite mindset provides is a sort of what I would call a quiet confidence or a calm confidence. So for example, if I were to tell you there's going to be a massive snowstorm or a massive hurricane next Thursday, you're like, all right, it's going to be awful. It's going to shut down work. Not going to get to work. I may telecommute. I may take the day off. It's definitely going to hurt a lot of companies, right? Going to hurt if you're it could destroy a farm, right? But we've had lots of hurricanes. We know how to deal with it. We know how to prepare for it. We know there's going to be a short-term hit, and we know how to ride it out.
Right.
Well, most of us live 70 to 80 years old. Imagine if we lived for 1,000 years. This would be like the 6th or 7th pandemic. Right. That we faced in our lives. We know it's going to hurt. But we know it's going to be over, and we know there's going to be pain, and we know how to prepare for it. Yeah. So what an infinite mindset provides is it helps you see what we're going through now, not as the end, but rather just part of the journey. Like it's hard and it's difficult, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. We're in darkness, but we know this comes to an end. We also know that life will not be the same afterwards. This is like World War II. It's like the way life was before World War II is not what life was like after World War II. The way that life was before this pandemic will not be what it's going to be. When we talked about going back to normal, there is no going back to normal.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine called it the other day, which I like, we're going back to abnormal.
Yeah.
It will be different. We don't really know how. But this is, what's really important to remember is this is not without precedence, which is we have gone through things before that have shaken the business world, sometimes forcing companies out of business. What do you think the internet did? I mean, the internet, put a lot of companies out of business who couldn't adapt to a new business, to the new change. And it created new businesses. And some businesses were forced to adjust, some proactively and did very well, some defensively, and they're still trying to figure it out. Streaming put all video stores out of business. Didn't have to, but it did. Starbucks, when Starbucks would come into a neighborhood, people would complain that Starbucks would put mom and pop coffee shops out of business. Actually, the data shows the opposite, that when Starbucks moved into a neighborhood, mom and pop coffee shops actually did better because it brought customers and people had a groundswell for the local business. The ones that went out of business were the ones that couldn't adapt. Mm. They still had that old ripped up couch because they had a monopoly on coffee shops. And when Starbucks came in with nice clean stores, they simply complained about Starbucks and they went out of business. It's like taxis complaining about Uber. An app doesn't put you out of business. You can have an app to hail a taxi. Yeah. It's because you have you have to adapt for the changing times, for new technologies, new companies, new competition, new ways of doing business. And if you don't adapt, you die. Now, that's not universal. Some companies, like video stores, some companies, this is just too much to bear, and there's very little we can do. But to think of this in terms of what skill sets do we have, what is our why, and how else can we bring that to life? this is way more sudden than the internet. It's way more shocking. It's way more unnerving, but it's not new in business. We know how to do this. I read of, I'll tell you two stories. There's a restaurant in New York City called Res Dora. It's a pasta restaurant. It's a relatively new restaurant. It's only been open about 9 months. So they're still they're still making a name for themselves. And of course, when New York City issued the order that restaurants could only be 50%, these guys saw the writing on the wall. They could see that it's going to get worse. Right. So they immediately started to adapt their company. So instead of firing all the waiters, saying, well, we don't need waiters anymore, they changed everybody's job. So all those same waiters are now packaging food and organizing online orders and call-in orders, which, by the way, they had to develop. This is a high-end restaurant. They didn't deliver food. They had to immediately figure out how to do that. But the point is everybody kept their job because they changed their jobs. Yeah. So just as the company had to adapt, the people had to adapt as well. The people who said, well, I'm only a waiter, well, I got no job for you. Yeah. And so what we're experiencing even in our own company, which is we're forced to adapt. We do live events. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. So if I have somebody on my team going, I'm only going to do live events, well, I got none for you. Right. So we have to adapt as individuals as much as we have to adapt as companies. I tell you of another pizzeria in Chicago. Of course, 70% of their money came in from selling slices. Well, that's done. Yeah. Not sustainable. Yeah. So what they recognized is they have assets. They have resources. They have a pizza oven. And so what they did is they started ordering medical grade, industrial grade plastic that their oven was hot enough to heat. And they started making face shields to sell to hospitals. Wow. So they're using their pizza oven to make face shields because they can get the oven hot enough to melt the plastic. Wow. I mean, genius. Yeah. Now, when this is all over, they may go back to selling pizzas or they may have two businesses.
Yeah. So that's quite an interesting thought about having to adapt. No choice but to adapt. There is no going back to normal. There is going back to abnormal. But I guess in Rotary, we're not really clear on how we would go back to abnormal, whatever it is. And Simon talked about the infinite mindset. And this is just part of the journey. We're in a dark tunnel, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. It might be just a speck of light at the moment. And he talked about, what if we had to live to 1,000, not 100? Well, Rotary's 100, 115, I think it is. What about the sustainability of Rotary? So it does live to 1,000. What are we going to do about that? So we know about change, and he talked about Starbucks, and he talked about Uber, and he talked about how everybody round about that, they changed. So what are we going to do as Rotary? Now, what I would like to do is put people into rooms to have a chat. And I'm going to give you a topic. So breakout room 1 and 2. So in breakout room, Alistair Robb's going to be in breakout room, so you know who's in breakout room 1. And Alistair Walker's in breakout room 2. How should we adapt? What could our abnormal look like? Because there is no going back to what we had. How are we going to be attractive to people in the future? How are we going to be irresistible? And breakout rooms 3 and 4. So in breakout room 3, Brian Stewart, just so we know who's in there. And who's in breakout room 4? Hillary, you're in breakout room 4. What do we need to do to stay in business? What do we need to do to keep delivering for the people in the world, for delivering for the likes of another Beirut? God forbid that happens again. What do we need to do as Rotary to adapt to make sure we can survive? And then breakout rooms 5 and 6. No, it's just breakout room 5. Whoa. Alistair Robertson, you're in breakout room 5. What message does Rotary need to share with the public to say, we're still in business, we're changing, we're not the same as before? What's a new message to share about Rotary? So there's a little thing. There's 8 or 9 in each of the rooms. So there's plenty for having that conversation. What I want you to do is have that conversation, and what's the takeaway message when you come back into the groups? I'm going to allow about 30 minutes for this conversation. I think it's worth that kind of time to hear. So when you come back, I just want to hear, what's the big takeaway message from your group? Okay? So rooms 1 and 2, how should Rotary adapt? Rooms 3 and 4, what do we need to do to stay in business? And what's the message for room 5? What's the message we need to share with our public? It might be for all our partners, for our collaborators. So I'm going to open all the rooms now, and everybody should have a room. So bullseye.
Shall we say in later years, and we like our meetings, we like the fellowship and the friendship, and we're missing it very desperately. So we can't honestly see in our club how we can change our format moving forward. So what we've kind of decided to do is to set up a second Rotary club, a Rotary 2 if you like, consisting of young people. It's for young people by young people. So we've got like a junior Rotary club and a senior Rotary club. The senior Rotary club, we'll continue doing what we've always done. It's what we do best, but we are dying out slowly. Hopefully these young folks will come up with all the great ideas and the energy and excitement, and we are there to help them and support them. But we won't be telling them what to do. It's entirely their business.
That was just going to be my question, Sandy, whether you were just going to allow them to get on with doing what they wanted to. Because that's something I worry with things like satellite clubs like that, is that the parent club tries to almost dominate and tell them what to do. But I think it's important, if you're going down that route, which by the way I think is excellent, I think it's important that they're given their head and allowed to get on with it. Anyone else?
In our club, Riverside in Inverness, we started right after the lockdown. We started a Zoom meeting. We meet at breakfast time normally, but we started the Zoom meeting on the same day in the evening, and we do some business, and then we have a bit social discourse, and then we generally have a wee quiz just to keep everyone active and involved. But one of the ideas that's been raised from there is, going ahead, we will have a Zoom meeting available that if we ever get back to having the normal breakfast time, I say normal breakfast time meeting, we will have a Zoom meeting running at the same time, so that anyone either not able to attend the breakfast meeting or carrying on shielding, or for whatever reason they can't make it, they can still come by Zoom, so they don't feel left out from the club meetings and agendas.
And it's what you're suggesting, Alex, more of a hybrid sort of club where you have meetings and the facility of Zoom.
Absolutely. Hopefully we will get back eventually to our breakfast meetings, where we turn up in person at the hotel and have our meetings as normal. But anyone who can't go can come along and attend by Zoom, although they miss out on the fried breakfast. And that's generally one thing that gets me out of bed at 5:30 on Wednesday morning, is the fact that I can go and get a fried breakfast without my wife seeing me. But as part of that too, we would be looking to have alternate Zoom meetings, alternate to the actual meeting.
Can I just ask Ray, because I think that's something similar to what you're proposing, Ray, isn't it? An alternate.
Well, what we are having.
I'm not terribly sure of who we've got in the room, but
yeah.
It's Alistair Arthur here from Dice Club.
Hi, Alistair.
Hi, I would just like to say that Yolanda's reverting back to the old normal, shall we say, is the way that most of our Rotarians want to go in Dice as well. And the only reason we haven't had a meeting yet, but they want me to go and speak to the hotel and find out, what we need to do to make it safe.
What have you been doing in the meantime, Alistair? Have you been having Zoom meetings?
Well, the answer is no, because we had a meeting last week, which was the new president, Sandy Dunbar. He took over 4 weeks ago. Prior to that, the old president, since March, we haven't had anything. So
I see.
We had to sort of encourage Sandy to get it going again, so we didn't lose the momentum.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not. They're not willing to pursue the Zoom meeting until they try out again the old way of doing it.
The old way of doing it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So well, I think we're going to run possibly a bit of both eventually, but it's just a trial at this point in time.
I think Zoom has been a savior in a way for many clubs, because it has enabled people to maintain some sort of face-to-face contact, and probably has educated, I'm not the least myself, educated people into how to use Zoom to an extent. So it has been handy, I think. Has anyone, apart from Zoom meetings and the possibility of return to face-to-face, has anyone else in room 5 had any alternative experience?
Hello, Jeff Storr from Alloa. We're using this whole strange times to rethink what the structure of our meetings at our club are going to be. We already have both evening and lunchtime meetings, but I think we're going to definitely retain Zoom meetings to an extent. We're not going to have, it's not going to be totally, but we are looking at the sort of mix that we might have. And one of the reasons that we're particularly keen to continue Zoom meetings was feedback we got from one of our members who suffers from MS and has actually found the Zoom meetings extremely helpful. He does get to lunchtime meetings with assistance, but he's...
maybe digging into our own pockets. Our own club used to do that at one time. But, fundraising through stalls at gala days and things like that seems to be pretty much impossible. And doing all the things we used to do, quite hard as well. But say if you're doing a Zoom bingo or Beetle Drive or something, how do you get the money in for that? How do you get it to pay? Maybe you haven't thought that far, but
well, our bingo, no, I was talking about bingo that we actually, it's a service that we do in the care homes. We actually go and do bingo for the old people's homes. So it's something that we provide, as it's one of our projects. So it's not a fundraising event. So no, we haven't thought about how we will fundraise.
Okay, Ian Dow has posted on Facebook this week his plans for running a bingo evening, and you have to
great help a lot in the sort of coming, going to doors, knocking on doors, and this sort of thing.
Robin, when I said the question what we're going to go do at Christmas time wasn't about Santa's sleigh, it was about where are we going for a meal.
Yeah.
That was the question, and
exactly.
at a cost of £30+ per head. How can you attract young people if you tell them you can come out with us for a Christmas meal at £30+ per head?
Yeah.
Well, part of my idea is kind of controversial because we get involved in a lot of things overseas, but this country of Scotland is a great country, and we are on the verge of almost becoming a third world country because of some of the things that are happening. And I think we have to put a lot of our energy into going out there into the community, into the public, being visible and doing things. It's not so much about gathering money. It's not so much about giving money. It's about getting your hands dirty, letting people see you get your hands dirty.
Yeah,
You're part of the community.
Yeah, yeah.
We've decided in Pidlockery, we're a small Rotary club, but we've been approached by the chairman of the community council and the chairman of the local radio station to join with them and try and encourage all the people who volunteered during the COVID to go into joint ventures, joint projects. It's not about joining Rotary, but it's about Rotary being there, using our expertise, and hopefully working on projects that will benefit our local community. And that's the way that we see we'll maybe survive in Pidlockery.
Yeah.
And hopefully people will think, oh, Rotary's not as bad as we think it is.
That's interesting, Neil, because I think that's the way we'll go as well, with some of the other organisations in the town.
Yeah, and we're the same in Contour. That's what we've saying. And even to take your point, Jim, on international things, you know, don't forget these things, but show that we're doing things for international by involving the people in the community as well, if we can get them to help out with.
Alison, we're having similar problems. There's average attendance is about between 15 and 20 of our members, a similar size of club as yours. And you're right, it's the same ones that are turning up every week. And I think you've got, it's engagement with those that are not attending to say, look, you know, come along. It might be scary in the first instance, but at the end of the day, you're actually seeing people you would normally see face to face, and you can still communicate with them.
I'm still not interested. I suggested to one of the guys, the guy who doesn't have a computer on, I said, you could come to my house and sit next to me.
Yeah.
I'll be at the Zoom meeting. And he said, no, I'm not interested. He just...
Yeah, it's engagement. It's engagement with the technology, and that's. I know my mother-in-law will not have. She's not have a computer. She's got her mobile phone. That's about it. But anything else, no, I'm not having anything to do with it.
Can I go back to this point? Sorry, David. A meeting or Zoom, it could be both, and both have strengths to play to. Technology not going to go away. Technology is only going to keep developing itself. I mean, look what we're doing just in this wee group tonight, or even the wider group. We've got folk from across all of the north of Scotland meeting up, and we're talking, and we're listening to each other, and we're exchanging views. That wouldn't happen in a conventional Rotary meeting unless we all travel for hours and hours and hours, and that's just not going to happen. So let's continue to embrace the technology and get it to work for us. Absolutely.
Work for everybody.
All right.
But let's see how we can extend our reach as Rotarians amongst ourselves, and ideally to people who are out there who just don't get involved in Rotary at the moment, for a whole range of reasons which we've talked about. They're carers, they've got full-time jobs, they travel, they're just exhausted.
What we have to consider is that Zoom and WebEx and these platforms will change. We're at a comparatively early stage in this. And I think as things advance, things will become slicker and better. We'll make it easier for people to participate. But then perhaps the other option is to go to, you have a weekly meeting, but one week is Zoom, the other meeting is face-to-face when we get to do face-to-face. For those that don't want to Zoom, to do Zoom meetings, they meet once a fortnight, whereas people want to do Zoom, they can attend the face-to-face meeting and also do the Zoom meeting the following week. Or you might repeat one on the other.
Okay.
No, that's quite valid. Yeah.
Ken, you'll have to unmute yourself.
There you go, David.
Sorry, Ken, you're muted.
So just to throw the thing in from Simon Sinek, what if this tunnel's 3 times as long as we think it is that we're going through? What are we going to do differently to keep Rotary surviving? and adapt to that, and also get younger people in. And with that, I'll leave the room.
Aye, okay.
To just connect with people in our communities, aware that, you know, when lockdown began to happen, the local trust really went into overdrive and organised the life out of everything. They did a good job, but there was no room for others to join in. So we found ourselves a wee bit, you know, not knowing what to do. And we really just were in our own wee cocoon as a club, really. So our first job, now that we've got Zoom established, is to try to reconnect again and to see if things can come out of those conversations. So this Thursday we have a local head teacher who we hope will help us with Rota Kids, but we want to just learn more about her and about her schools and her particular challenges and stuff. We've had the manager of the local care home. We're having a Mary's Meals film night, you know, just lots of different things that help us connect. This weekend we're going to have a walk, possibly a litter pick, but if there's no litter, then just a walk. And that's a way for us to be together safely and hopefully do something useful. And yeah, we just hope that out of the conversations we might be able to show some service. The manager of the care home says they need lots more outdoor seating because all their visits are happening outside. So maybe we've asked her to cost that out, and maybe we can do something to help with that. So yeah, we're just feeling our way, and we haven't really thought about what will be next, you know, when things begin to open up again. We planned to meet by Zoom for the foreseeable future, really.
Thanks, Caroline. A question to everyone then. We're talking about Rotary adapting. Does anyone feel that Rotary will have to adapt and become more of a service organisation and less of a fundraising organisation? You know, is it going to become more difficult to raise money, but there will be more need for us to actually get hands-on?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, what we are going to do this year is focus more on community, link in with there's Friends of Rotary have traditionally been for older people who have left and coming back. What we're trying to do now is encourage younger people already involved in some of the community to become Friends of Rotary, because they're working on their own problems.
To foundation, but I have to say that is going to be the big thing, because, you know, as I say, I don't know any e-club that is, well, no, I don't know any normal e-club that finds it easy to raise money. It's a huge new challenge.
Thanks, Alicia. I mean, our main fundraiser for years now has been a race night, which produces anything between 11 and 14,000 pounds, and also run a duck race in conjunction with AFA, and that's been another fundraiser. We've had film nights, but all of these are rather struck at by the restrictions on public gatherings at the moment. So it's a bit difficult to foresee what would be publicly acceptable and also a worthwhile effort to raise some money at. Any thoughts, anyone else?
Well, we've normally for the last 5 years have had a ladies' day, believe it or not, on the 1st of May. So it's just before the bank holiday. So and we have literally 300 ladies there.
And you know, you've got all these names that we've got, you know, and we've been contacting people. So that's been good. So we've got that lined up, and that's only just been in the last 48 hours we've managed to get that finalised. So that then we could then tell people in advance what the speakers are. So, you know, and hopefully we keep coming. So That's been fairly positive, I would think.
Much the same sort of thing happens. I find I always join the meetings a few minutes early, and there is a sort of general light-hearted chit-chat, which is quite good. Sorry, did you want to say something, David?
Well, I think I'd like to pick up, but maybe develop something that's been said. We don't have to expect people to come to us. We could go to them, but we could just send an away team of Rotarians to by agreement, to meet up with others. And it's just a way in which we can open ourselves up and get that dialogue going. I mean, the Rotary story is a good one, but we just need to get it out there. And we can use this medium, Facebook, etc., to do that. And where we can, when we can, we'll do it face to face. But it's not just expecting people to come to us, come to a meal and hear a speaker. That's where the adaptation has got to come in. We've got to do what we do differently.
Absolutely.
Play to our strengths. Play to our strengths.
We've got to take Rotary to people that want to hear the message.
They're not going to come to us. If that was happening, we would be swelling with membership. I think we know what's happening.
So we've got 41 back in the room. So I guess all the rooms are closed if we've got that number back. So welcome back. How's the conversation? Hands up. What would be room 5? Alistair, what would be the key takeaway message from your group on what do we need to do to share about Rotary with our partners, collaborators, public, whatever?
Basically, I invited people to indicate what their clubs were doing, and most, like ourselves, have been operating Zoom meetings. These have been reasonably well attended. One club, Dice Club, until recently, has not had any Zoom meetings at all, because the previous president didn't organize them or couldn't organize them. Anyway, but the majority have had Zoom meetings. They didn't regard them as successful or as acceptable as face-to-face meetings. And there's a general feeling that the sooner we are in a position to return to face-to-face meetings, and not every week perhaps, but a mixture of the old normal with a bit of the new normal, is how to suit the aspirations of most Rotarians. As one of our contributors said, we've got 31 members and we've got 35 opinions on the thing, and my synthetic is almost exactly the same. There's no unity, but I think the majority of our club would like to get back to the old normal. We're told that that's maybe not going to be very possible, but Yolanda tells us that her club has returned to normal, or will return to face-to-face meetings very, very shortly. And I think that's perhaps the aspiration of the majority, with a bit of a change to have Zoom meetings. Two of us observed that we have existing members who, for physical reasons, find it difficult to attend unless they have a specific help to take them along to meetings. And Zoom has been a boon for them because they can take part and contribute without having to either burden others or endure the discomfiture of getting themselves there physically. So the Rotary is a conservative outfit, and it would appear that the wish of the majority in room 5 may be different elsewhere, but room 5 considers that as much or as close a return to the old normal as is possible, with a spice of Zoom added in.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Right.
We'll take questions at the end. I want to go through all the rooms and just get the key feedback. So room 4, which had Hilary and John from Pitlochry, Sheena. Do we have the key point, the key takeaway message from your room?
Yes, thanks. So really, we did touch on our weekly meetings, and that we think a mixture of face-to-face and also Zoom. But I actually tried to get us to look beyond the meetings. So it was important to keep your name out there as a club, to do things in your community, to post that onto Facebook so that your community knows that you're there and you're there to help. There was also a suggestion that it might be good to have in the monthly newsletter a list of activities that clubs were trying within the new normal for activities and for fundraising. And that might just help we might then be helping each other.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Hilary. And very valid points. We're only as good as our image, and as I say, it might take 50 years to raise a great image and 3 seconds to lose it if we're not careful. So thank you very much for that. Room 3, Jim.
Well, we threw it around quite a bit, and I found the conversation and discussion very meaningful. And we talked about what used to happen in the past and some of the things we've tried before didn't work, but we come to the conclusion that basically Rotary will have to change. It'll have to be seen more in the community, more visible. It has to get more involved in local groups and activities, not to worry so much about fundraising. Give more service that's hands-on, and join the relevant organizations within the community that can help you move forward.
Okay, absolutely. And just looking at that which was the question of what do we need to do to stay in business, that's just about nails it, I think. So well done. And room 2, talking about how should Rotary adapt. Alistair, who's going to give the feedback? Who's the key message for your group?
The key message from our group really is that meetings in future they're going to have to be hybrid in some form. They're also going to have to take Rotary to people. And one suggestion was, well, I suggested maybe you have 2 meetings, one Zoom 1 week and face-to-face the next. But the feeling was that the meeting should encompass both. To get around the lack of personal approach, Jim Bicker said that in Stonhaven they do 15 minutes chat room at the beginning where they mix people up. But the big thing was to sell this to people outside to come and take part on Zoom, if nothing else. The meeting, I think the consensus was very much a hybrid meeting. It's also a question, should the subscriptions reflect that? The fact that some people prefer to meet on Zoom and other people prefer to meet face-to-face. But the feeling is when things return to some sort of normal, the face-to-face meetings will continue to happen, but Zoom meetings might run in tandem with them at the same meeting.
Okay, thank you for that. And certainly not least, room 1. What's the kind of key message from your group?
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, the question was how should Rotary adapt, and we had 8 different clubs represented in our room, and we had 8 different ways that Rotary is going to adapt, and every single one of them was relevant and correct. And some of them echo just what Alistair Walker has said there just now. The first and interesting one from Turriff is that they would hope to set up a satellite club to give the people who wanted to meet in that fashion with Zoom and that sort of thing an opportunity to do so, while the older and more traditional members were still able to meet for their meal and things like that. Most clubs believe that the way forward is possibly some sort of hybrid. where there's either 1 or 2 meetings a month on Zoom, and you know, the other ones are held either face to face, or in one instance going out and doing visits to other clubs and things like that. But most people were looking at some sort of hybrid idea. Portlethen are even looking at hybrid, different types of Zoom meeting, where they can have one type of Zoom meeting which would just be a pure business meeting, other types of Zoom meeting where they can invite in speakers from all over the world, which I think is just the beauty of Zoom, and then at the same time carrying on with their coffee and cake meetings on a Saturday morning. So yeah, there's no one answer to this, Ken. I think that you know, Rotary will adapt in the way that suits each particular club and each particular member.
Thanks very much for that. We've got about 2 or 3 minutes spare, so if you do want to pass a comment, contribute, put your hand up and we'll see that. And Alistair, you've got you can watch this as well. You're co-host. My own club in Forest, we actually run a health check a couple of weeks ago, and we were just meeting. The membership team met just a couple of nights ago, ready for the business meeting this week, and we're actually talking of running 2 separate groups, one for those that wanted the traditional and if they could go back to that, and one for other people who wanted to do Rotary differently and certainly don't want a meal, but certainly want to contribute. And we certainly talked of how can we run Santa's sleigh this year, because we didn't want to miss the public image, even if it just means taking Santa's sleigh around and not letting anybody close to the sleigh, but actually physically taking it around and saying we're still here, we're still doing it, and all the rest of that. I've not seen anybody's hand up, and we have got kind of 3 or 4 minutes. The big message for me, I was quite impressed.
Robin has his hand up, sorry.
Okay, Robin, go for it.
We do a Santa sleigh every year, but what we, and you know, we go around the doors, knocking doors and getting a charity collection. What we were thinking this year was we would bring the community to us in a central point, in the town rather.
Yeah, and one of the things that's going to come up shortly is we're talking about the autumn seminars that we run, and fundraising in the cashless society is one of those things. So that might be an interesting thing to think about. I know when we talked about Santa's sleigh and Forest, we were talking about how could we do a Just Giving page, for example.
Yeah.
So there's different ways, and it's like Simon Sinek said, we've got to adapt. There's ways we can do that, and we just need to think about it. John Milne, you're going to be the last contributor tonight.
Can I just follow on from what Hilary said, because I think it's very important. We've seemed to have got a series of conversations that's very much focusing on the club adapting, and whether it's meetings or Zoom. And in terms of adapting and learning from lockdown, the links and connections we've made with other organisations, particularly in the early weeks and months when people are out there with food banks and helping doorstep deliveries, I think that's part of a wider theme of trying to make Rotary more accessible, that people can take part without having to be a member. And I think we really need to work on that, because we've unintentionally made it an either or. You're either with us or you're not part of us. And I think we've got to find ways of helping people take part in Rotary, in activities and projects, fundraising or whatever, but it makes it more accessible and lets them offer a little bit of their time without having to come all the way with us.
Yeah, thanks very much, John, on that. And that's very valid, you know, when we're talking about the long-term sustainability of the good we do, the service above self, and how we do that. And what really intrigued me with Simon Sinek, and I've actually put his web address into the chat box for anybody that wants it. So it's Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, and fascinating to watch some of these. But as he says, what if this tunnel is 5 years and not 1 year that we're in? What are we really going to do? Because Rotary is not going to disappear. We will make sure it survives. We will make sure it's sustainable. As he said, Starbucks, the local coffee shops adjusted how they're doing things. Uber came in and the taxis sorted out how they were doing things. If you want to know more or want help with any of the topics here, DG Alistair, Heather, who's following on, myself, any of the assistant governors, more than willing to come along and help you. One thing I'm just going to ask Sandy, if he's still on from Turriff, you talked about putting out a health and safety thing at some point, Sandy.
I have, yes, I've got it ready. It's going to the 1010 Vision magazine.
Excellent. So that's going to come out just the end of this week, I think.
Friday, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so somebody asked a question about, Sandy said they would get some HSE help on that. Contact Sandy, it'll be in the 1010 Vision. That's excellent. That's our hour. I can't believe how fast that's gone tonight. So thank you very much for everybody's contribution.
Sorry, Ken, can I jump in quickly with just a couple of little tiny bits of advice?
Go for it. You've got 30 seconds.
All right. The government, Scottish Government, as of the 10th of July, said that up to 15 people from 5 different households could meet outdoors only. 15 people from 5 households outdoor only. Indoor gatherings are still limited to 8 people from 3 different households indoors. So there's been suggestions of clubs having some face-to-face meetings already, and people are complaining about this. This is tarnishing our image. So please stick to the government guidelines until they're changed.
Next week, I've not decided the topic yet, but it'll be something topical. We have got an exciting opportunity coming up, and I'm speaking to Jason Brown, who spoke at the International Assembly for Incoming District Governors this year. And he's agreed to come and speak to us. There's a probability that we'll get that on the 24th, but I'm speaking to him on Wednesday night. And if he does do that, I'm actually going to open this up to a Scottish-wide forum and invite 10, 20, 12, 30 and anybody else that wants to join. But we'll let more of that information come out later. Thank you all very much for joining tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.